I'm Sarah, and this is my sister Rebecca, and we are currently quarantined together, and we're going to do a book challenge where we try to guess each other's top 5 favorite books. Through our whole lives, we've shared books, we've read a lot of the same books, so we decided to see who knows each other best and who could guess more of the other's top 5 favorite books. We've each written down our favorites, and we're going to first off start by reading our guesses. The way it's going to work is each book that we correctly guess that is actually in the other person's top 5 will get a point. If we correctly guess each other's number 1 favorite book, it's worth 2 points. I think a lot of my guesses might be books that you liked 10 years ago. I did think I had a bit of an advantage though, because I feel like you had talked about a certain book with me recently that you thought was your number 1. That might have been why I decided to give 2 points for getting the number 1 book right.
Cheated.
Okay, so tell me what you think my top 5 are, or 4, and then what do you think the number 1 is?
Well, I think one of your top 5 favorite books would be the Animorph series.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. So series, a whole series, that just counts as 1 spot. It's just Harry Potter is 1 spot, not each of the 7 books, or we don't have to pick our favorite from the series, just the series is 1 spot.
Okay, the Harry Potter series was also in the top. And then I had The Truth About Forever, Good in Bed, and then your number 1 book would be Something Borrowed by Emily Giffin.
Okay. Okay, we'll talk about mine. I want to talk about what I picked for you first. So I had Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Shablonsky? I have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And then I had the Harry Potter series. And then I had, for your number 1, I had World War Z. My number 5 favorite was in fact the Animorph series. So that's 1 point for you. If you haven't heard of the Animorph series, it's a middle grade book series about 6 teenagers that are trying to save the world from an alien invasion. If you're about our age, you probably remember seeing the book covers when you were a kid. They have like kids turning into aliens. There's something like 58, no, there's more than that. There's 60 some books in the whole series. I think it was kind of a victim of its own format. So when the book series came out, they were releasing 1 book a month. At the time, it seemed really reasonable to me as a child, but when I think of as an adult about an author actually like trying to put out 1 book a month, the middle ones were ghostwritten. Because it was a middle grade series, there's a lot they couldn't put in it. They got a lot in there about like the tragedies of war and the decisions you have to make and all and that type of stuff. The reason this is still on my top 5 favorite books, despite being a middle grade series and despite some of the issues it does have, is like how much a part of me it really was. And I think it had a lot to do with who I became as a person, and it's one of the only series I've really written fan fiction on. Like it's kind of my ride or die, despite being technically a children's book series. That's 1 point for you. What's your number 5 book?
I guess Just Listen by Sarah Dessen.
Sarah Dessen?
Did not get.
I did not get a point on that. I did consider putting a Sarah Dessen book in your top 5, and I did not know which one, and I don't think I would have said Just Listen. I don't know which one I would have picked.
I think it's my favorite book of hers, because I found the main character the most, I suppose, endearing. A lot of her main characters can kind of get like really stuck in their own like petty drama, but I felt like this girl's issue like was actually very relevant to like the time, and it was something you would be stuck in. It didn't feel like silly that she was trapped in kind of like how to talk about the particular problem she was having.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. I don't really know if I thought about it, but that's definitely a lot of her main characters. They maul over 1 issue for the entire book, and sometimes it's a justified one and sometimes it's not. But I do like Sarah Dessen. The Truth About Forever would be my favorite of hers. All right, you are
in the lead
1-0. My number 4 is actually The Devil Wears Prada, which you did not guess, by Lauren Weisberger. The Devil Wears Prada, like, I don't necessarily think it's the best book in the whole world. It's definitely a first novel, you can tell. But in terms of like books I've really read over and over again, it's just very comforting to me. I think I first read it when I was 17 or 18, and it's just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, so what is your number 4?
Harry Potter series.
That's only number 4?
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
Yeah.
right, that's 1 point for me. So we are now tied 1-1. Do you want to talk about Harry Potter, or like what your relationship with it was?
It's starting to become kind of like a problematic fave the longer it goes on, because I feel like a lot of people are like, read another book. I have read another book.
At least 4 others.
Yes. So I do feel a little offended, but I also kind of feel people's point that not everything needs to be tied back to Harry Potter.
Yeah, as time's gone on, you know, once you have something that popular and that big and everybody reads it and everybody analyzes it, you see the flaws, but I do think it's still a triumph.
I do feel like just the scope and depth of Harry Potter makes it better than a lot of books. I know she's been in the news a lot lately. It's like not supporting like trans women and stuff, and I definitely am not in with that. Yeah, it's you know, it's still like a good work. I guess the point is she just needs to, I don't know, back off it a little bit. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
All right. So for my number 3, I actually have Julie and Julia by Julie Powell.
That was not on.
That was not on your list, no. So Julie and Julia is actually a memoir of a woman who, you've probably heard of or seen the movie with Amy Adams and Meryl Streep, but it was a book first. And before it was a book, it was a blog where a woman decided to cook her way through the entire Mastering the Art of French Cooking by Julia Childs. A lot of people complain because the main character, kind of like Eat, Pray, Love, or probably The Devil Wears Prada, the main character is a woman who, her situation's not that bad, but she's still not very happy with her life. And people have a hard time when women admit they're not happy. But I think it's okay to be a woman and say you're not happy, and here's what I did to try and make myself happy, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. But it's a good book. It's funny. I like it. I like the descriptions of the food. I like her triumphs and her fails as she tries to cook her way through, and it's one of my go-tos if I need something to just reread that makes me happy and is comforting. All right, and what's your number 3?
Oh, I Know You Anywhere by Laura Lippman.
I had Laura Lippman. I knew you would have one, and I was pretty sure that was your favorite.
Yeah, because I've told you like multiple times it was my favorite.
But I did not know. I didn't. See, I think it's kind of like 10 years ago maybe you would have had the other ones I guessed. But that's a good one. Why don't you tell me more about that?
Laura Lippman is a pretty good writer in a lot of ways. She does a lot of mysteries. That's her like big thing. Is kind of like usually in Maryland because that's where she's from. She's from the Baltimore area. But this book kind of steps outside that in a way. It kind of focuses on a different type of issue, which I was intrigued by. It's about a serial killer. You know, I'm one of those girls.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's about a serial killer, and he has a very specific type of person he likes to kill, like you do, I guess. And he accidentally gets stuck with a 15-year-old girl who doesn't kind of fit his type. So he like carts her around for like a month. And then he eventually gets caught, and people realize how many people he killed, and she gets sent home. What counts as an accomplice, what's a victim, how those different relationships play out. And it's kind of picks up when he's about to be put to death for the many murders he committed, and she was one of the key witnesses that allowed that to happen. And he sees her face in a newspaper for something her husband does, and he's like, sends her a letter like, I'd know you anywhere, and kind of tries to get her to retestify about what she had or had not seen to save him from the death penalty.
I liked that one. Laura Lippman, she has kind of a unique prose, I guess I would say. It's not my favorite, but I've read some of her books and I've enjoyed them. So
she does the jump around to like different people's point of view, which I feel like she does it well, better than most people do.
I had that. I knew that was one of your favorites. I did not know for sure if it was top 5. All right, so my number 2 is Harry Potter. So we've already talked about it. I know, it's a thing. People, it's a thing on BookTube too. I've watched a lot of BookTube videos, and pretty much everybody that likes books has read Harry Potter and loves Harry Potter, and we probably don't need to talk about it anymore.
I mean, I guess it's hard to find someone who likes to read that was like, I thought nothing enjoyable about that book.
They're out there. I've seen the videos. I do also think kind of what you were saying about how it's kind of becoming problematic.
Now it's kind of like popular to not like Harry Potter.
Which ends up happening with anything popular. It starts out popular and then it goes full cycle and people don't like it, and it's okay to like popular things. It is. It really is. What is your number 2?
Oh, what is my number 2? That's a good question. Oh, To Kill a Mockingbird.
What's
my number 2?
Point for me. So we are tied up at 2-2. You want to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird?
I guess it was like one of the reasons it's my favorite. It's like one of the first classics I read where I was like, oh, this makes sense. This is why this would be a classic. You know, other classics, like when you try to read Great Expectations or something, you're like, oh, maybe this was good 100 years ago, but it's not really doing it for me now. But that one I felt like it makes sense as like a classic book that's accessible to almost every person.
It's readable.
It's readable. Sure. 1960, it was probably pretty groundbreaking, and it's kind of held up. Maybe not necessarily the content, but definitely the writing has held up. Like the prose is very good.
That's one I gotta go back to. I read it in high school, which I think is where you read it because I had it, right?
Yeah, I read it in middle school.
Mm-hmm. I liked it. I didn't have that much of a connection with it. I think if I was picking like my favorite book that I kind of consider a classic, it would probably be The Handmaid's Tale. Tied up 2-2.
Okay.
My number one book, worth 2 points,
is
in fact Something Borrowed. Well, it's actually a duology, so I say they count together as like a series. Something Borrowed, Something Blue by Emily Giffin. This is just another one that I just love. Like, I know a lot of people's problems with it, especially with Something Borrowed, is the main character Rachel's actions. She ends up beginning an affair with her best friend's fiance, and yeah, it's wrong. Even though she knows it's wrong, she kind of tries to justify it to herself a lot, but there's not, you can't. You're still having an affair with your best friend's fiance. It's wrong.
My thing with all of those books were like, everyone seemed to hate Darcy. Like, no one was like shocked when this happened, and they all took Rachel's side in a way. And I was like, why are you all, one, how come they weren't talking behind her back all that time? Because there's like so many reveals about the things Darcy had done that Rachel had just never considered. And two, why didn't you just cut out the toxicity? You don't need that kind of toxic atmosphere in your life. If someone makes you feel that bad about yourself, you don't need to steal your fiance. You need to be like, peace.
Yeah, I agree. So Rachel's the main character. Darcy is her best friend, the one she's having the affair with her fiance. And Rachel's kind of supposed to be like the nice every girl, like cute but not gorgeous, you know, just like an average girl that we can all kind of relate to. And Darcy's supposed to be the drop dead gorgeous, kind of spoiled, self-centered best friend. And that's why you're supposed to kind of be able to justify Rachel doing what she does, because Darcy's kind of been taking advantage of Rachel their whole lives. But as Rebecca said, you know, there is the obvious, why are you still friends with her? Like, why are all of your friends, when they find out you're having an affair with her fiance, why are all of the friends like, oh, good for you, Rachel? It's problematic.
And she lied about getting into Rachel's dream college, too.
She did.
And Rachel never was like, show me the letter. Like, at least make Darcy work for it. Like, let's see what kind of fake letter she put together.
Yeah, Rachel was kind of real gullible, too, for sure. Looking back of all the stuff Rachel did, and you're like, how come she didn't get, or Darcy did, and how come she didn't get caught with this sooner? But it's still a fun book to read. And I will, like I said, it's problematic, but I don't know. For some reason, it speaks to me, and I love it. And I love most of Emily Giffin's earlier books. I will say Emily Giffin, and this is all of her books pretty much, the plots wrap up very quickly. Like, you spent the whole book, and then everything's wrapped up in like 20 pages. You're like, wait, what? But I think Something Borrowed, Something Blue kind of is one of the few that really fixes that, because there's two of them. There's a sequel.
It's a good book. It's an easy read.
All right, but that is 2 points for you. So you're at 4. And what is your number one favorite book?
It's World War Z.
So we tied.
Yeah, we tied. But to be fair though, I like had told her within like the past 3 weeks that World War Z is my favorite book, like outside of this. So if she hadn't got it, it would have been pretty like pathetic on her part.
It was like 2 months ago, but yeah, once all this...
I've definitely said it while I've been here.
No, it was before you were here. I remember we were talking on the phone.
I've said it here.
It was because I recommended it to one of my classmates based on it. It was at least... That's not the point. That's not the point. Why don't you talk about World War Z?
It's nothing like The Walking Dead and The Walking Dead or anything like that. It's always like, here's one guy, how do you survive? World War Z starts upon the knowledge that we do survive, and then it goes back and looks at kind of like how we did it, how the world decided to kind of unite against it, and then like what was the aftermath, so forth.
It's really unique in terms of zombie books.
Yeah.
I do strongly recommend it, and I've heard the audiobook is fantastic.
And it's got like George Clooney or something, comforting during such great times too. It's basically...
I don't recommend it right now if you're easily spooked. Like, do not read this book while quarantined. All right, so I did not come up with anything to do in the event of a tiebreaker. So
what was going to happen if I won?
nothing.
Moles.
But you're gonna get a little crown, maybe edited on your head. I don't know. What were the ones you guessed for me that weren't on my list? I know The Truth About Forever, which is my favorite Sarah Dessen book.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else did you have?
Good in Bed. I actually think Jennifer Weiner, her older books are kind of like, but her more recent books have gotten a little bit better.
Jennifer Weiner is kind of hit or miss for me. There's some I've loved, and then there's some that I haven't really liked. But she's still like, I consider her like an auto-buy author. You know, when she comes out with a new one,
I feel like
automatically.
Her books and like her first couple books are very like, I don't know, a little chick lit tropey to me in a sense of like, I feel like some of the first ones were more autobiography than anything.
That's kind of a trope in of itself, is the first novel, like fictionalized self-insert wish fulfillment, which Good in Bed definitely is. And I've suspected something borrowed of being too. Emily Giffin, get back to me. Let me know. How'd you and your husband get together? Are you married? Do you have a best friend? Anyway, but there's definitely other authors that have done it as well, and
it seems like Emily Giffin does have a toxic friendship somewhere. That was very like specific.
It was very specific. I think she had a toxic friendship, and maybe she wished she had stolen her best friend's fiance. Yeah, I don't know. I love Good in Bed, even though it is kind of like she meets and befriends a movie star, because that's what all us normal girls can relate to that.
I feel like a lot of books are, but some people like get past it, and some people get stuck in it. And I feel like Jennifer Weiner is someone who's like gotten past it. What was the other one on mine? Oh, it's Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yeah, was that ever in your top 5? You think?
No, I don't think so. I like the Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I've only ever read it once or twice. It didn't hit. And
then Turtles All the Way Down, because I originally had The Fault in Our Stars, and then I remembered you saying you thought Turtles All the Way Down was actually your favorite John Green.
I think that's probably his labor of love in terms of like his writing.
But it's still not your favorite book.
It's not necessarily my favorite book, no. I mean, it's a high school book, and I'm not in high school anymore, so. And I read it as an adult, so it's if I'd read it when I was 15, it might be.
Who knows each other better? It turns out we know each other exactly the same. And in our next video, we'll try to make it a little harder. All right, thanks for watching.